So if you're anything like me, you're obsessed with medium term to longer term travel, but kind of find it a little bit more challenging to find the right opportunity. A lot of videos I see online are from influencers or content creators who are paid to show this kind of life, and that is their job. And to be fair, anyone can work towards becoming a content creator and influencer, but it takes some time and not everyone is interested in doing so. So I put together a little list of medium to longer term travel opportunities that anyone can do and are relatively lower cost. And if you've been interested in travel for a while, none of these ideas are going to be groundbreaking. Like, you've probably heard of them before, but I do think I have some interesting perspective to add to all of them. So the first option is a youth mobility visa or a working holiday visa. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this just because there are so many resources online and perspectives from people who have actually done it. I'd say what I see most common with this option is people going to other Western countries or countries that are relatively similar to back at home. So pretty similar to Canada or the US. So the two most common destinations that I see are the UK and to Australia. And so for the UK, I see a lot of people kind of set up a base here and then they're able to work there, live there, and then take short flights to the rest of Europe. I can see why a lot of people opt for this because it would be a lot easier to find a job in an English-speaking country than, for example, if you were to try and do this kind of visa in Spain or Italy where you might not speak the language. Not impossible, but definitely a lot harder, especially with the bureaucracy and process of getting this visa. So for people interested in traveling Europe, I see a lot of them going to the UK or even the Netherlands. I'd also say Australia is probably the most popular destination for this kind of visa. I'd say this is for people who are primarily interested in traveling within Australia, maybe living that coastal beach town lifestyle. As well, you can get relatively cheaper flights to Asia compared to North America. So if you're interested in traveling Asia, that could be another good option as well to kind of have your base in Australia. As well, I've had a friend who did this and then was able to actually get like a full working visa in their field. So that's pretty cool. Also for Australia, I do believe you have to complete farm work or remote town work, kind of to give back to the country first. So that's just another consideration. I'd say the main cost for this opportunity are the cost for the visa application. As well, it will cost money to find somewhere to live. Usually what happens is that people will stay in hostels until they can find something more permanent. As well for Australia, because you have to do that farm or remote work, people can often save a lot of money from this because this kind of work usually has accommodation and sometimes food included. My second option is teaching English. And again, this isn't something new or groundbreaking, but I do have some maybe different perspectives to add to it. So the option that I've looked more in depth on is teaching English in Spain with the Auxiliares de Conversación program. There's a few different ways you can go about applying for this program. You can do it more direct with the government, or you can do it with organizations like CIEE. What the program is that you'll be staying with a family at a homestay and you'll be a helper for a classroom teaching kids English in the mornings. So you'd have your afternoon and evenings free. I think this is a really great opportunity if you have a really flexible remote job, whether it's part-time or full-time. Because of the time difference, you'll be teaching in the morning and then you could still have that time in the afternoon to log on for your remote job. And because of the time difference, it will be like business hours in North America. And if you wanted to do something like this, I would personally go for the CIEE application route. And that's just because it's a lot easier. You'll be spending more money, but they will take care of your homestay and do more of the administration for you. But if you wanted to save more money, then you could definitely do the direct route, which again is a little bit more work and administration. And I know teaching English in Asia, like China and Korea, are super popular as well. And there's plenty of organizations that will help you do this. just be sure to research and make sure they're credible. Again, the main cost for this would be the cost of the application, especially if you go the CIEE route. Luckily for this opportunity, because it is a homestay, you don't have to worry about the cost of finding somewhere to live. So that just kind of leaves food and leisure. And I'd also say this opportunity is unique because with all the other opportunities, you likely have to quit your job. But again, if you do have that remote work, then you can, in theory, keep your job. And I have actually asked CIEE directly about being able to work remote, and they have no problem with it as long as you're able to manage that yourself. Also, I'd say if you're really interested in teaching a language, it doesn't have to be English. I'd say look into online platforms like Preply. And what I mean by this is, for example, if you wanted to teach English, you could get an English teaching certification like the TEFL and sign up to become a tutor on Preply. Then from there, you can kind of have more freedom to book students, to kind of create your own business and to travel. So what I've personally seen as a student on Preply is that there are tutors who will be originally from like the US or Canada, and they'll be teaching a language like English or French, and then they'll be living in a country that kind of has a lower cost of living, such as various countries in South America. So they're kind of able to have that online job and have that flexibility to travel wherever they want and not necessarily just have to stay in one country or area like you would if you were teaching in Spain or China or Korea. But of course, with those opportunities, you can take like weekend trips nearby to other countries in Europe or other areas in Asia. I definitely have read some complaints from people about platforms like Preply and how they operate, so just be aware of that. And of course, the platform does take a cut of the payment as expected, so again, just be aware of that. And my third option is to use platforms like Worldbackpackers or Workaway to find volunteer opportunities to lower the cost of your travels and to find really unique volunteer opportunities. These platforms can help connect you with opportunities such as volunteering in hostels, ecological reserves, farms, dog shelters. You can even find English teaching opportunities. And I personally am really interested in planning a backpacking trip where I use these opportunities to provide structure and anchors to my travels and as a way to lower the costs, if that makes sense. So what I mean by that is I would organize my backpacking trip kind of around these opportunities. So I would have a couple of these big opportunities planned so that I can kind of take a break, have a routine, do some work, meet some people, and kind of just slow down, and then plan excursions and tours kind of around these longer term stays. I think this is a really great opportunity to cut costs and to actually feel like you're living in a different country. I've had friends do this specifically with the platform Workaway, and this platform does require a membership, but I do think it would be worth it. And that friend specifically worked at a hotel and then also did some English teaching. I personally would be very interested in doing some ecological reserve work. I've actually done some university work where I've had to stay on ecological reserves, and what I've noticed is that a lot of these reserves, specifically in Ecuador, have websites and will have a section for people who are interested in volunteering. So if you're interested in maybe just staying at one place, you could totally directly contact these businesses or ecological reserve in this case and inquire about volunteering. The only benefit for Workaway or World Backpackers is that a bunch of these opportunities are in one place. So if you did want to do a backpacking trip or do multiple countries, then that's one reason why you would use those platforms rather than contact a organization directly. Also, the person that I knew who did this Workaway and taught English actually loved it so much that they got a master's in English teaching. Their undergrad was completely unrelated, and that's now what they do professionally. And what's great about this line of work is that she has her own business, so she has a bit of flexibility in that sense. And as well, the work is completely online. So she teaches English to people who are interested in immigrating to Canada and obviously need to improve their English speaking skills. So you never know what could come out of these opportunities. I'd say the main cost for this opportunity is one, the membership if you choose to use the Workaway platform. And then really I'd say the costs are super flexible. So depending on your opportunity, your housing and your food could be covered. And so really the main costs are your leisure activities and traveling from destination to destination. So this one's really what you make it. I do have a couple bonus options for you. So the first one is a bit more shorter term. So I met this person who was really interested in doing a trip from Mexico to Guatemala, and they had no problem doing the planning, and they actually started to do the planning themselves. And the only one restriction they had was that they were working full time, so they were only able to get like 2 weeks off work. And so they were doing the planning, and they actually found that going solo would have costed more than using a travel group like G Adventures. And I personally have never used G Adventures, and I always assume that these kinds of tour groups would cost more because of the work that it takes to plan the excursions and the itinerary. And I personally have no problem doing that myself. But apparently it could actually be cheaper because a lot of the transportation are on buses. And if you were to do like private transportation, it would cost a lot more. So I don't know if that is necessarily true, but it's something that is interesting to think about. So if you're interested in this kind of travel where you hit multiple countries, maybe go from one country to another, then it could possibly be cheaper to go with an organization like G Adventures than it could be to plan it all yourself. Again, just something interesting to think about. And my second bonus option is that if you are still in post-secondary, then you are in a great position to do medium to longer term travel. You have so many opportunities at your fingertips, whether that is semesters abroad, years abroad, summer courses, research courses. There are endless opportunities for you to find placements abroad. For example, one of my coworkers actually has a daughter who is studying physiotherapy and is doing their placement right now in Malta. And that's something I didn't even know was possible, but it is. As well, I have a whole video on studying abroad in New Zealand as a Canadian exchange student, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in learning more. So yeah, those are my ideas on some more medium to longer term travel opportunities. If there are some opportunities that I missed, please leave them down below because I am always looking for new opportunities for myself personally. And thank you for watching.